Well, this is Dr. Buddy Crum, and I'm so glad to be with you today. Don Wells and I are together, and Don is someone that is very much on the cutting edge of information and what's happening. And I have been in years past, but we're here more out of my experience in life than what is more current. But I'll tell you something that doesn't go away, and particularly at people my age, older people, they are scammed all the time. And there's more opportunities today with the internet and Rotophone and all of those ways of getting to people with stories. And let me tell you, I've asked Don to tell us a little bit about what he knows and hears about what's going on. Don, always good to be with you. You're always such a source of information, and it's such a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, Dr. Crum. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. We love doing this. We love sharing and helping people. It really is our passion, our heart. I was reading an article, as I mentioned to you, from the gerontological writing that they have. I think that's out of Oxford, and this was a piece that I was reading. It's called The Gerontologist, and they were studying happen to be elderly people.
My age.
Yeah, more mature people, not because they're less smart, which is what they are, but they're an easier target because they're more available. And more often they have money, and so they were a target. But what was fascinating to me, and I didn't know this, that the financial fraud that we hear about is an estimated cost to consumers of approximately $50 billion.
I bet you that's even more than that, because people don't tell about the fraud that they've been part of.
That's one of the things that they mentioned, and that's exactly, so that's a very conservative number probably, because you're right, people are embarrassed, they got scammed. And so what we hear then many times is people say, well, listen, I do know somebody that got scammed, and we can all name, whether it was this individual that scammed the Ponzi scheme. There's names we could get into, but we're familiar with that, and it's very dear to us. And there's something that is very scary to an individual that has built their life savings, worked hard, whether it doesn't matter the amount. People many times say, well, I know this isn't very much, but it's my life savings. It doesn't matter if it's 10 million or 100,000. If it's your life savings, it's the same impact on your life.
And don't think that people that are scamming care about that.
That's right.
They will take your last dollar and feel no conscience about it. Go ahead.
Right. And they're good at what they do, and that's what they talk about. But we want to do this from a little different angle, that we don't want you to be in fear, because so many times I'll discuss with somebody their financial plan, where they're going, what they're doing, and out of fear, they're afraid to move because they don't want to get scammed or they don't want to. Well, that's great to let that motivate us to do our due diligence, to pay attention, to get knowledge, to ask the right questions to the right people. But we don't want that to make us draw back, stay in cash, and think that we're safe, because with inflation, we've got to have our money invested if we're going to see an increase, and we're going to grow, and we're going to build wealth. You may say, well, I've got enough money to just live in cash and live my life. Well, that's really a terrible way to think, because we want to grow that, increase that, and hand that on to the next generation. The Bible tells us that we want to do that for many generations, that a blessed man does that for 7 generations and beyond. We want it to go as far as we can. And so what we want to do today is talk about some things that you can do, very simple things, just to start with, that you can do to make sure that you know what you're getting into. And so I thought about these. I just listed them. That this is not by any way an exhaustive list. I wanted to dialogue a little bit, get some thought from you. But there are really 4 things that I thought that we could kind of outline, give to people to start with, and then maybe expand on them and talk a little bit about them. But one of the first things I tell people when they come, they say, I don't know. I'm afraid. I need to invest. I need to make a change. I need to do some things. What do I do? One of the first things that I tell them is know who you're working with. Know the person. Is this a salesman? Is it an advisor? Do they have a certified financial planning certificate? Are they a CFA? Are they know what their background is, but know that person. How long have they been in the business? Has other people invested with them? Don't be afraid to do a little bit of research because unfortunately sometimes people can be a good salesman and you think, well, boy, okay, that's believable. And that's not to mean that everybody that's doing what in this business is a crook, but know who you're dealing with, first of all. Know who that person is. What is their designations? What is their background? Know the person. Secondly, know who they're working for. Are they working for a bank? Are they working for a registered investment advisor, a broker-dealer? Are they working for themselves? They've hung out their own shingle. Because knowing who they're working for will give you an idea of where they're coming from. So know who you're dealing with. Know who they're working for. Thirdly, know what they're selling. What are they selling? Are they selling you an annuity? Are they selling you a financial plan, a mutual fund, life insurance? Know what it is. Know the product that they're selling you. Do enough research. Ask some questions so that you know. So know the individual. Know who they're working for, know what they're selling, and then fourthly, how are they getting compensated? What is their fee? What is their compensation for selling this? That needs to be disclosed. There's nothing wrong with somebody making money if they're giving a service. I don't mind at all if you say, hey, and I use this example, Don, I want to wash your car for $15. That's great, but if you take it out and put it in the rain and bring it back to me, that's not a good deal. You deceived me. So how are they getting paid? Is there a conflict of interest? Are they offering you something that in your portfolio that they get paid more for if you buy that product? That needs to be disclosed, and you need to be able to ask those questions. Just those four simple things. It's not an exhaustive list, but those four things will at least get you on the right track and give you an idea if this is a legitimate deal or not to be able to invest in.
Well, it's certainly, those are good suggestions, and they make a lot of sense. And it's just, so many people are just, I don't know whether they are afraid to ask somebody, they don't want to embarrass them, or feel like they don't trust them. Just tell them, this is not personal. I do this with everybody, but I need to have some questions answered. Who do you work for? How do you make your money? And how are you compensated? And Don, actually, a lot of times you can just Google them up.
Yeah,
and you can go to the different websites that investment advisors and so forth. Yeah. They should be registered in some of those areas that they claim.
There's a new one now called Broker Check. You can go to brokercheck.com, get on, find out if that individual's registered, if they're with FINRA, the Securities Exchange Commission, if they're with a firm, what firm, how long they've been, the test they've had, because you want to do the due diligence. You want to do the research. You want to make sure that you put in a little bit of time. And listen, nobody who is legitimate in the business of anything that they're selling legitimate, it doesn't matter whether it's a couch, whether it's financial products, is going to be offended if you ask questions and say, well, is this a good couch? Is it going to hold up over time if I pay $1,000 for it? Is this a good investment? So anybody that's offended is looking for a quick sale and a quick dollar. But anybody that's really has something of substance that's worthwhile is going to take the time and educate you and explain, and you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence on them, the firm, the product, so that you know what's going on.
Right, and it took you sometimes a great deal of time to make that money. It's okay to spend a couple of days checking them out before you sign your name or write the check.
Yes.
Now, many of these are good salespeople, and there's nothing wrong being a good salesperson, but don't think that they're not going to be able to present their product well. They're trained to do it, and that's the way they do it. So I just suggest usually say, this is something I will probably do. I intend to really look into it. And then take a couple of days, as we say, pray about it, look into it, and then check it out, and then make your final decision.
And that advice, Dr. Crum, I've heard you say this on many occasions, that advice goes for anything in life. Yeah. Anytime you feel pressured to do anything, doesn't matter. It can be relational, financial, it can be on the job. That's not a good time to make a decision. You want to take a step back. You want to take a deep breath. You want to be prayerful. You want to look at it. Take your time, because if we get emotionally, listen, you got to do this deal by tomorrow. It's closing. I would probably tell you run quick, fast, and in a hurry away from that, because anything that has to be done that way is usually a little bit nervous. This is a one-time deal. You got to get in. Those are usually the things that give red flags that you have to be aware of.
People tend to procrastinate, so people always put a demand for action in whatever they're doing. I need an action from you. And that's why I say to people a lot of time, I just did it recently, like this week. I said, this sounds good to me. I probably will do it, but I'm gonna think about it a couple of days. Well, they called back in a couple of days, and I said, I'm a little further along. You'll have my answer in another 2 days. And I called them back. And I told them I'm going forward with it. But I checked it out.
Yeah. And that's what you have to do, because it really is not, we get so afraid that we're going to get, bamboozled or hoodwinked. And it is easy. Any of us can. But by putting some checks and balances, talk to people, find out, doing a little bit of research, you'll be surprised what you can uncover and find in that, and then you'll feel better about that. Many times, we've got to mix our faith with action. Many times by prayer, you can get a little direction and feel something, and you can go forward with that. But we don't want you to be afraid. The reason many times we're mentioning this is people say, well, there's so much fraudulent stuff out there, and there is, and there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of schemes and scams. But that shouldn't keep us from truly investing and doing the right things. There's a lot of issues and problems out there. There's a lot of problems in relationships. That shouldn't keep you from being in a healthy relationship and pursuing one. So we don't let those things that are negative or bad or the enemy has tainted keep us from doing our part to do the right things.
There's always a balance. And we know that the greatest in the investment world that people use, salesmen, is loss of opportunity.
That's right.
And they will tell you, if you don't do it, I cannot, guarantee you this. And I say, I know you can't, but I'll take my risk.
That's right.
And usually, very, very seldom is there a loss of opportunity. But anyway, that has been, we both have seen a lot of it. There's a lot of it right now. There'll always be, but you make your long-term investments. And if you're a day trader, that may be different. But if you're a person who's building wealth, then you want to do it that way. Don, thanks for that advice. We all need to hear it from time to time.